is Radharani in the Gita. Is Radharani in the Gita. So he searched, Google search, the Adi Guru for the world today. The Jagat Guru of the world today is Google search. So he searched Google search Radha and Gita, Geeta, Indian style, and Radha and Gita, Gita. So believe it or not, Gita has more entries than Geta. So all these entries, Radha and Gita, say like this. They say Radharani's not in the Gita. Radharani's not mentioned in the Gita. She's not mentioned in Mahabharata. She's not mentioned in Bhagavad Puran. Every article says, every post, every YouTube movie, everything says that. So today we're going to show and prove how Radharani is in the Gita. So how did it begin? How did Radharani get in the Gita? So how did Radharani get in the Gita in the first place? That's the first question. Krishna came to Kurukshetra when he was 55 years old. He came to Kurukshetra on a Surya Grand. There was an eclipse of the sun planet. He came from Dwarka. The Yadavas came from Indraprastha, from Delhi, Indraprastha, Meerut, or whatever. And the Vrishnis came from Mathura side. And Krishna and all the Yadavams and all the people that came from Dwarka. And all the Nanda Baba and Yashoda and Radharani, all gopis, everybody went in the one expansion of Radharani, which is explained in Radha Krishna Smarana Padati by Dhyan Chandra. There's three different forms of Radha. So Radha expanded one form. She went, all the gopis, Nanda Baba, everybody went to Kurukshetra for a lunar eclipse, solar eclipse. So there, Krishna met the gopis. He met Radharani. How old was Krishna when he went to Kurukshetra?
55.
Right. He was 55 years old. Panchpan. Panchpan Sahoga. So how many years was how many years was the last time the gopis saw him? He was 11 years old, now he's 55. 44 years, no darshan of Krishna. Right? 55, hold up. So, Krishna Chakravarti explains in the 82nd chapter of Gita, explains Krishna and Balaram meet the residents of Vrindavan in Kurukshetra. And Krishna met all the Vrishnis, Yadavas, and then Krishna slipped away secretly, went to meet the gopis. And he was giving different excuses why he didn't come back for so long. I had so much seva to do there, and this and that. And then it said, when the gopis saw Krishna, it says, they saw him from a distance. First he was walking towards them. They were all collected in one area, living at Kurukshetra. And it says in Sanskrit, this is 82nd chapter, text 39. It says, Drigbir Ridi Kritam Alam Parvavya Sarvas. The gopis saw Krishna, Radharani saw Krishna. They took Krishna through to the holes of their eyes and tightly embraced him in their heart. They took Krishna into their hearts through their eyes and embraced him to their full satisfaction in their hearts. They became totally absorbed in ecstatic meditation on Krishna. That's their first sight of Krishna. Then he got closer, then they went to a secluded place and he started. Then Krishna, when Krishna got away from all the crowd, went in the forest somewhere and met all the gopis. Then he expanded himself and embraced every gopi individually in Kurukshetra. Tightly embraced each one. And they were already in trance from meditate, taking them in the heart, and they were like in a trance. They woke up from the trance, and Krishna jokingly laughed. He said, now are you relieved from your anxiety and separation? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, yes, very much. And then Krishna said, my dear Sakhis, my dear Priyajis, do you still remember me? What are you talking about? What kind of question is that? So this was the meeting there they had. Then they spoke so many, the gopis spoke to him so many nice things, and so much tikas were there by Vishnu. You can see it in Sardadarshini. So that's the meeting. We're 55 years old. Oh, one thing. So someone, they said, on these articles, they said, Radharani's not in the Bhagavad Puran, and she's not in the Mahabharata, so she's not so significant. A lot of people say that. But we did some research, and it's Radharani is in the Shrutis. She's mentioned in the Atharva Veda. She's mentioned, Radharani by name is mentioned in Atharva Veda and Rig Veda. These original Shruta, four original Vedas are Atharva Veda, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, and Yajur Veda. These are four. So she's mentioned Rig Veda and Atharva Veda. And she's not mentioned Bhagavad Puran and Vishnu Puran. I say Radharani is not in Vishnu Puran, which is a major Puran, and Bhagavad Puran and Mahabharata. But Radharani is mentioned by name directly in Gopal Tavani Upanishad. In the Upanishads, in Shrutis and Upanishads, Radharani is mentioned. And she's mentioned in Padma Puran, Skanda Puran, Brahma Bhagavad Puran, Brahmanda Puran, Devi Bhagavat, Matsya Puran, Varaha Puran, Radha Tantra, and Naradiya Puran. So there. So they say Radharani is not in the Bhagavatam. My guru, my teacher told me, they say that, because I asked this very same question. People say that, but they're not Rasika. They're not Rasik. Rasik Vaishnavas, they see Radharani in every verse of the Bhagavatam. There's 18,000 verses of the Bhagavatam. My guru is a Sanskrit Pandit and Shastriya Pandit, Shastra Nipun. He said, Rasik Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava Rasik will see Radha in every verse. And most especially, it's very clearly indicated Radharani in the 30th chapter, 28th verse, famous verse. Radharani's name, because they say Radharani's names are her name is right here. 10th canto, chapter 30, verse 28. Aniya Radito. Radito, Aniya Radito. None other than Radharani. Anana Radito Nunam Bhagavan Harishwara. Yanno Vihaya Govinda Pritayam Anayadraha. Some special gopi has perfectly worshipped Krishna Govinda. He was so pleased with her, they took off and left us, everyone else in the rasa dance. So, Radha's name is mentioned in the Prabodhanandi. Radharani's name is directly mentioned throughout the Vedas, Vishnu says. She's in the Purusha Bodhini Upanishad of the Atharva Veda. There it says in that section, in Gokul, Srimati Radharani and Chandravali Devi stand on the left and right side of Krishna. They're the two main gopis. And in the Gautamiya Tantra, it says, Devi Krishnamayi Prokta Radhika Paradevata. Radhika shines brilliantly. She's not different from Krishna. And Krishna Upanishad, and this and that. He quotes so many slokas. So this shows in the Bhagavatam, the Radharani is in the Bhagavatam, chapter 30, verse 28, and every verse of the Bhagavatam. So they say Radharani is not in the Bhagavatam. We say she is in the Bhagavatam. Vishnu says she is in the Bhagavatam. Very clearly, on Radhito. Who's Radhito? Radharani. So now, how is Radha in the Bhagavad Gita? Krishna came back to Kurukshetra. How old was he now? When he met Radharani, he was 55 years old. He came a second time to Kurukshetra to speak Bhagavad Gite, Battle of Kurukshetra, right? So how old was he then? He was 100 years old. Exosal. Okay. 100 years old. So he was there, he met Radharani at 55 years old, and 45 years later, Krishna was in the same place. The same trees were there. Trees lived for hundreds of years. So when Krishna went to was at Kurukshetra speaking the Gita, when he walked there, he saw the place. He saw that tree. There's the trees. I met Radharani under this tree. I met Alita here in this place, and we had so many talks together. So when Krishna went to Kurukshetra, the Kshetra became Udipan to remember Radharani. Because place is also Udipan. Vrindavan is Udipan to remember Krishna's Leela. We go to Varsana, we get inspired to remember Krishna's Leela, Varsana. So when Krishna returned to Kurukshetra, he was meditating on Radharani, he was thinking of Radharani. And first he started speaking to Arjuna about karma and gyan, chapter 1 through 6. And again in chapter 13 through 18 he talks about gyan. But then in chapter 7 through 12, Krishna's talking about bhakti. What is bhakti? So obviously when Krishna's mind turns away from karma and gyan and turns to bhakti, his mind has to turn to Radharani. Because bhakti means devotee, love of Krishna. And the greatest lover and greatest devotee of Krishna is Radharani. So when Krishna was speaking Gita, he was already thinking of Radharani by seeing the trees, by being in Kurukshetra and seeing the same trees that he stood under with Radharani. So he was very much absorbed in thoughts of Radharani. So when he's speaking of chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, he finally gets to chapter 12. Chapter 12 is called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. Who's the greatest Bhakti Yogini? Greatest Bhakti Yogi, greatest Bhakti is Radharani. So when he started to speak chapter 12, he started to think of, he said, Bhakti, Radharani Prem. Radharani is my greatest Bhakti, greatest devotee. She's the example of devotion for the whole world, the whole universe. She's the example of pure devotion. Selfless love, selfless seva. No selfishness, everything for me, everything for my happiness and pleasure. So he starts thinking naturally. Because you're at work doing one thing, but your mind is somewhere else. So he's teaching Arjuna with his mind, and tongue, but his heart is meditating on Radharani. So he starts speaking about bhakti, and then he gets more than halfway through teaching about bhakti. Then Radharani takes over his mind. There's 20 verses in chapter 20. It's the shortest chapter. You want to chant one chapter in Gita Jayati chapter, you can chant chapter 12. It's Gita Jayati, I should chant Gita. I don't know how much time. I'm busy reading Gopi Gita and Gita Govinda. So I had to worship Bhagavad Gita. So I read Bhakti Yoga chapter, 20 verses. Okay. Or read all 18 chapters, you're a Maha Yogi, you know. That's also good. I've done both. So after he finished halfway, he got to 12 verse, he got to 13, 14, he started speaking Radharani. So the last 7 verses of chapter 12 speak all about Radharani. What's the proof? Because every verse ends with this phrase. Every verse is from verse 14 to 20 ends with the phrase, Bhakta Same Priya. Bhakta Same Priya. Who is Priya? Priyaji is Radharani. Priyaji Radharani ki. She's Priyaji, Sriji, Priyaji, Radharani. So Krishna is remembering Radharani. Radharani's name is, Radharani's presence, her very name is in the Gita. Chapter 12, Gita, Bhakti Yoga chapter, verse 14 through 20, every verse talks about Radharani. But what is in these 8 verses? 8 verses from 13 to 20. These 8 verses describe 35 qualities of the best devotee. These verses describe 35 qualities of the best devotee. So who is the best devotee? Radharani. So all the qualities described here in chapter 12, verse 13 through 20, are qualities of Radharani. That's why he said, Priyaji, it says, if someone develops these qualities, they become very dear to me. Priya means dear, and Priya means the dearest. The dearest Priya is Priya Radha. We have Priya Kunj. We know Baba's place called Priya Kunj and Priya Kund. Priyaji.